Hey friends, you've come to the right place. Welcome. I'm Chloe Radcliffe. I'm the Goodness Barista today, and I'm coming to you from New York City. And my job as the barista today is to whip up the buzz about good leadership and how goodness pays. So I'm here to encourage you to post on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, whatever your thoughts are about today's meeting. We're so excited to have you, and we're going to be starting really soon. And in the meantime, right now you can use the chat to send us your name and where you're at in the world.
Most people agree the difference between surviving and thriving in business today is good leadership. But what exactly is good leadership? Good leadership is the art and science of people working together to create great results. You see it when leaders with good character multiply their impact with proven success habits. Great results happen when people work together and create a positive impact on their customers, colleagues, and their communities. Good Leadership is also a game-changing consulting firm headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Unlike other firms who coach individuals, Good Leadership coaches teams to exceed their goals, both personally and professionally. The firm's mission is to spread the idea goodness pays. What's goodness? Goodness in business is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. Good leadership coaches accelerate alignment in teams during disruptive changes in the business, and they bring out the goodness in people with a proven process called the Goodness Pays Leadership System. It's worth your time to learn more because leading with goodness is confirmed by research to produce better business results. The secret is here in this exceptional book, How Goodness Pays. So if you want to explore new ways to produce better results faster, visit goodleadership.com. Watch for a goodness dinner near you, or get tickets to a Good Leadership Breakfast series. It's an exciting workshop held only in Minneapolis 8 times a year.
Hello from New York City, and congratulations for investing in yourself as a good leader who radiates goodness. I'm Chloe Radcliffe. I'm your host and the Goodness Barista today. And my job is to encourage you to spread goodness through social media and to be active in the chat. And we already have a couple people in the chat shouting out from Minnesota. We have somebody calling in from Austin, Texas. So we're so excited to have everybody with us today. And now it is my pleasure to toss it over to the founder and creator of this event, a thought leader in the executive coaching industry whose firm Good Leadership is creating the category of executive team coaching, Paul Batz. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Hey, Chloe, looks like springtime in New York. That's awesome. It's great to start our Memorial Day weekend together and with a few friends who are live here in the studio. It's awesome. So it's completely obvious that the pandemic forced us out of the ballroom for the rest of this year, but we'll be back to meeting in person soon. So if this is your first Good Leadership Breakfast, welcome. This whole thing started as an impromptu gathering during the depths of the Great Recession 11 years ago. That's when a group of leaders like you were motivated to discuss this specific question. Do you still believe goodness pays? It turned out to be a transformational meeting, and the program just kept growing from there. So for the next 10 years, we feasted on a fabulous breakfast with live music by the Benny Weinbeck Trio, and right up until COVID, we hosted more than 20,000 guests who contributed more than $335,000 for charities. Then last year, we made the unexpected shift to virtual breakfasts. And after 15 months of trial and error now, we're grateful for our partners who stuck with us. Here's how we looked a year ago. Broadcasting with one iPhone at the Good Leadership offices. So much has changed for the better since then. And here I am wearing the same jacket and shoes to celebrate how far we've all come together. So today's meeting features Megan Remark, the president and CEO of Regions Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota. She agreed to speak today because she believes in our mission of spreading goodness. We're specifically building on the idea that good leadership is a team sport, because like we saw in the opening video, goodness is when people thrive together. Today's theme is the power of positive teamwork. And Megan is here with us today, right here in the studio. It's so nice to have you with us in person. We're both vaccinated, yes. So we can sit this closely together. So I'm wondering, would you please tell us, to just get started, what's the most rewarding part about leading Regions Hospital?
Gosh, well, thanks, Paul, and it's actually really good to be here with you in person and without a mask
Yes,
on,
that's
so
right.
it's even better. You know, a great day for me at Regions is really seeing our mission of our Health Partners organization, of our Regions Hospital organization in action. And what that means is I love it when I can talk with patients and hear their stories of survival and great comebacks, and hear how our team was able to be a part of that.
Well, that sounds wonderful, but we also know the last 15 to 18 months have been amazingly stressful. What have you been doing outside of work for fun that helps you recharge the batteries?
Yeah, well, I think like many of you, I took up the sport of walking during COVID.
Sure.
And so I have turned that into really some great time to recharge, and I've been prioritizing identifying a good friend once or twice a week where I can take a long walk, like over an hour, and have a meaningful conversation with one person and really get back in touch with someone and make that connection. The other thing that I do to recharge, which I actually have not really talked a lot about, is I have a little bit of a commute to work. And so particularly during COVID, driving to and from work, I've been singing loudly out loud in my car by myself. So I love inspirational music, and it kind of gets me pumped up, and it's a good way to start and end the day.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about that later, don't we? Actually, we love to get to know the person behind the leader. So that's one of my favorite parts about doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel you on the singing in the car, and I'm jealous of having a car out here in New York. We just have to sing on the street. And I can't wait to hear more from you, Megan, shortly.
So building up to today, we shared a survey with leaders like you, because one of the most valuable things we do as coaches is to learn from one set of leaders and share those insights with others. That's how the goodness grows. So Chloe, you read for us the first survey question and share the results.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, yes or no, the members of my team are aligned and speak positively about our vision and plan. We received hundreds of responses, and Paul, it looks like 94% said yes and 6% said no. So that's a really strong positive response. Paul, can you talk a little bit more about this question and where it comes from?
Yeah, so this particular question comes from the Good Leadership Team Momentum Survey. It's our best coaching tool. We asked this question because it's all about alignment. We know that teams can't produce great results without alignment. So the number one most important factor for how goodness pays in a team is the degree to which the team believes their plan is realistic, well thought out, and also compelling, and that's sort of the excitement word. During the pandemic, our coaches were able to stimulate team development by using polling like this to evaluate how well the team was aligned, committed, and accountable. We saw many examples of how good leaders pivoted to improve their teams with bold thinking, encouragement, and also healthy tension. We saw many teams actually increase their team momentum survey responses while leading over Zoom during the pandemic.
That's amazing. I actually didn't know that, Paul, and that's what a testament to, people really working to adapt to the pandemic and having to relearn how to get most of the important things done.
Yeah, we had to do it.
Yeah, we had to. So the second question we asked dives deeper into that idea that goodness pays. So let's look at the results. The question was, our team holds one another accountable for behaving in ways aligned with our team and company values. 90% said yes and 10% said no. So a slightly larger disparity here, but still strong positive response. Why do you ask this question with teams?
Well, I think this data reflects how we've all helped each other get through the past 18 months. We know that from other research we follow that people are losing trust in government, in big business, in the media for sure, and organized religion. And employees are turning to their workplace as a source of positivity and a source of goodness. That data is also important because we all know that just 10% of team members with bad attitudes and toxic behaviors can ruin a good plan or a good team. Also, I think it's important to remember now that we need to pay attention to our 90% who say yes, because the business media has been sharing lately about how we should all anticipate the largest movement of leadership talent we have ever seen, starting later this year. It's all caused by the emotions that have been stirred up by the murder of George Floyd, the isolation of the pandemic, a dramatic political election, and the inconsistent levels of COVID-related caution. We're all experiencing pivot fatigue. which has many leaders reassessing their aspirations, their values, and how they really want to work into the future. I think it's a good idea for us to stay in touch with our team members, to really understand how they intend to live and work in the future.
Yeah, it's really been such an important year in so many ways, and I think every one of us is a different person. So, of course, the growth of the Good Leadership Breakfast wouldn't be possible without the generous support of our sponsors, and I'm very excited to introduce our sponsor for today's breakfast. We actually have one sponsor live in studio with us, Darren Lynch from Irish Titan. Thank you for being here. Can you please tell us why you think it's important to sponsor the Good Leadership Breakfast?
Thanks, Chloe. Thanks, Paul. Yeah. Happy to be here. I am Darren Lynch, the founder and CEO of Irish Titan. Irish Titan's an e-commerce agency that I founded way back in 2004. So we build and grow e-commerce sites. More importantly, we do that with a business first, online second philosophy. That's our why for you Simon Sinek fans out there. We're headquartered right here in Minneapolis. We have 34 Titans. That's how we refer to our employees. And we're closed only 2 days a year, St. Patrick's Day and the day after. We have long been friends and sponsors and big supporters of Good Leadership. In fact, we used to share an office together. I think that the reason we're so supportive of what they've been doing over the years is right there in the title, leadership. We all benefit from the impact, the positivity, the team sport aspect of leadership and how we bring that to our companies and bring that to our own lives. I've incorporated many of their philosophies into how I try to lead our company. For example, work-life blend, that concept, is something I've incorporated. So we're very appreciative of the partnership with Good Leadership over the years. Congrats to Paul and his team for everything you've been doing over the years, and good luck with everything you're going to do into the future. Sláinte.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It's great to have you sharing that Irish Titan mojo here in the studio. It's really awesome.
It's nice to be in person.
Yeah, and I love the green shoes.
Right, nobody can see them, but I'm wearing my green shoes, of course.
Fantastic. Okay, so now it's time for us to hear more from Megan Remark. Everybody, remember, you have the opportunity to send in some questions for us. Use the chat on the side of your interface online. But before we do that, Megan sent a video that was produced by some people inside her organization. So let's take a look at that video now. Wow. So will you tell us what it was like running a hospital during the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a really loaded question, Paul. I first want to just start out by recognizing our photographer who took all of those photos. It was one of our internal medicine physicians. He's an intensivist. He works in our intensive care unit. His name's Avi Nahum. And it was just one of so many ways that our care team was helping each other through this pandemic. And so he had this concept of really recognizing how much you see through people's eyes and seeing the impact of COVID through people's eyes. And so he started taking these photos, and it really caught on. Caregivers were coming up to him saying, I would love a picture of myself during this time frame. He took over 500 photos of doctors, nurses, housekeepers, and it really became an inspiration and something uplifting for our team during this time. So to share just a little bit of insight on what it's been like being in a hospital during a pandemic, you know, all of us in the entire world have been living with the inconveniences at a minimum, but also the grief and the tragedy of what this last year has brought to all of us. And as caregivers, we have that additional burden of, we have the additional burden of not just living through the pandemic, but really being there for others, and putting our own work aside, or our own problems at home aside, and really rising above to be there for people in their greatest time of need. And the early days of the pandemic were probably the hardest, while we were learning how to safely take care of COVID patients and also learning how to safely protect our healthcare workers, those working directly with COVID patients and keeping them safe and not having them get COVID-19. And after a few weeks, we felt much more comfortable in that space, and our caregivers were just amazing through this entire process. And then we all witnessed the murder of George Floyd. And I feel like that was probably the hardest month for us, because our employees would say, gee, I'm finally feeling safe at work, and I'm not feeling safe at home. And really, racial injustice is something we live with every day, and it doesn't go away like we're hoping the pandemic will go away. And so I think that caused us really to understand that we were in the middle of two pandemics, you know, the pandemic of COVID and just the ongoing pandemic of racial injustice.
Well, and when the George Floyd uprising happened, that actually came in the doors of the hospital, didn't it? Tell us a little bit about how did you have to change the physical plant of the hospital to do all this?
Well, I would say we changed a lot of things physically and from a process perspective. You know, you think about the fact that we have 6,000 employees that work 24 hours a day at Regents Hospital, and all of a sudden everything that we knew was changing. How we were able to, or actually how we changed our visitor policy. You know, hospitals are typically very open places, and we want our families to be able to be there and waiting in the emergency room if someone's in our emergency department, or visit someone who is gravely ill and is in the hospital a long time. And our caregivers had to be the family in these cases, because we weren't allowed to have any family in the waiting areas. No one could be with someone as they were going into surgery. No one could visit someone who'd been in the inpatient unit for 15 or 30 or 45 days. So I think that was a major challenge for our caregivers, who had to both be there for them clinically, but also emotionally, and be their extended family.
So what effect did that have in real ways on your staff?
Well, it just added a lot of burden to the staff. And you know, we talk a lot about change in leadership in general. Well, the pandemic made, change wasn't even a word that was describing the magnitude of what we were doing. We had hundreds of teams meeting every day to reinvent how we were providing care, reducing the number of times people had to go into a room. We did a lot of innovation, remote monitoring as an example, trying to conserve our PPE because we had a worldwide shortage of masks, and really trying to figure out how we can use the science to really make sure we can keep people safe and have the supplies we needed to get through the pandemic. So every single process and policy changed, and then it changed again, and then it changed again, and we're still going through that. So you know, it took us 6 or 8 months to get up to a place where we were kind of in our COVID-19 normal, and now we're coming back out of that and re-changing all of our processes again. So it was a pretty significant challenge for everybody.
So maybe the most obvious question is, looking back at all this, how are you different today as a leader?
You know, for me personally, I'm a lot more grateful, and I'm a lot more patient, and I feel like I'm leading through the lens of what's important and not just what's urgent. Because at the end of the day, no matter what industry you're in, you're working with people who have a lot going on in their lives, both inside work and outside of work, and it's really the people that are the face of your business. And in healthcare, that's even more important. You know, it's the people, it's the team who take care of all of our patients. And so I think we've really, even more so than before, focused on the health of our employees and on their well-being. And I think I haven't said more I've said it more in the last 3 months than I have ever in my career, of making sure people are taking time off and modeling that behavior and focusing on self-care and doing more every day to walk the talk about that. So as a leader, I've really changed talking about what we're doing to how we're doing it.
Yeah, so the theme today is the power of positive teamwork. And what struck me looking at that video is how all you've seen of these people are eyes. And that the eyes are the window into the soul, right? And I saw a spark in the eyes of the people that were photographed. So how do you go about leading your team? First of all, you have a very large team. We'd love to hear a little bit about that. But how have you maintained that sense of positivity?
Yeah, I am really impressed with how the healthcare industry has shown up nationally and just then directly here in the state of Minnesota, really working together. And so our leaders have been modeling that sense of teamwork. All of us as healthcare organizations in the state of Minnesota have collaborated. We were on calls every week. If someone was being challenged by being full in one hospital, we were figuring out how to safely move them to another facility. So, competitors became collaborators, and still that continues today.
That's cool.
So that's been amazing. I think the other piece is that what was a challenge for us, that we actually took on this challenge in a really positive way, was how do you lead with confidence when you as the leader are in uncharted territory? Typically as leaders, we are the ones initiating the change. We're the ones planning the change. We're the ones trying to talk with our teams about the change. And here COVID was an entirely new circumstance where I would wake up in the morning and there would be something new in my text message that we did not anticipate that was happening. And so as leaders, we were experiencing what oftentimes our teams experience when you're being confronted with something new or unexpected. And so I think that our leadership group really focused on how do we lead with confidence. And we took our communication to the next level. I'll never forget, in the early days of COVID, there was no time to send a memo out. We actually sent people out, and we were communicating directly to the front lines in the moment on the unit.
Old-fashioned way.
So, and it was real-time communication. And I think the big challenge is that we would have a caregiver work for 2 days. They would have 2 days off, they'd come back, and their entire unit had changed the process for how we were keeping people safe. And so it took a lot of human communication, in addition to emails and text messages and huddle messages and communication teams supporting all we did. But it really actually, that part of what we learned during COVID will definitely keep, that visibility. It's one thing to round, it's another when you're saying actively every day, where am I showing up for my team?
So let me say back to you what I heard. Everything was so real and urgent that people were just operating in a mode of trying to help each other get stuff done, even giving up texting and emailing memos and stuff and sending someone down the hall. That's amazing. It's got images in my head of almost like the MASH unit when we watch MASH on the television, right? So there had to be moments when people were down. So what did you tap into inside of you to help people stay positive?
Well, I think the biggest gift that COVID has personally given me is being more real with people. Sometimes, the other end of that, being confident in a crisis, can sometimes during our worst days come across as you're not getting the pain and suffering we're going through. And so I felt for me, it was such a relief to actually not try and protect people from how I was feeling, and how relieved people were that I was also feeling stressed out and challenged by that, and being able to share stories about, there's that classic, oh, how are you today? Fine, everything's fine. Well, everything wasn't fine. And so we really kept it real in that sense. And I think it was pretty freeing for me to say, I'm struggling today. We're facing a 16-month pandemic and counting. Most crises last 24, 48 hours. Sometimes if you think of natural disasters, there may be several weeks or months.
Sure.
But very few things top this in terms of running in crisis management for that long a period of time. And so for me, it was saying what was immediately on my mind and actually being part of that human process of coping. And it was really freeing, really freeing.
So I know you have a large team. It's 20-some. Yeah, and so you developed some success habits to keep this team, accountable and aligned and supporting each other. Anything come to mind you want to share?
Gosh, we do have a large team because healthcare is a huge team sport. One of the things that we did a little analysis around how many people does a patient see when they are in a hospital bed. And if a patient stays 4 days, they will encounter over 100 healthcare workers in probably 100 different roles. And so everything from phlebotomists and housekeepers and food service and nurses and doctors and social workers and administrators and nurse managers. And so it is really pretty amazing. And so we have a large leadership team because we do a lot of things in hospitals and we need that content expertise. And I think that the way that we've stayed together as a group is recognizing that every role is valued, and it's not just the nurses and doctors. That is the team that's absolutely the go-to people for our patients, and so many of us support that group and make a difference. And so I think we've been really focused on recognizing how lucky we are to have meaningful work. And I feel like having meaningful work and having leaders who are drawn to being resilient and being able to take on the stress of doing that meaningful work. So we bring the right people in, we recruit the right people, and you stay if you're committed to that mission and you're committed to giving of yourself. And so I think the mission itself really drives alignment, and I feel really, really grateful for that.
Well, one of the dangers of a large team is it's hard to make sure you have everyone's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've learned to use this technique that we call healthy tension really well. How has that worked during this whole time period with your team?
Yeah. So, healthy tension, what I love about healthy tension is it's the Minnesota positive spin on how do you have hard conversations. For us, what it meant was bringing those hard conversations into our conversations. And not doing them, the meeting after the meeting, because the meeting after the meeting is exhausting. So why spend all of that time in the meeting not to discuss the real issues and then have a bunch of conversations outside? It splinters the group, it creates factions and camps. And so we actually, through good leadership support and modeling, really talked about how do we put critical issues on the table and do it respectfully but directly. And so we use the word healthy tension a lot when we say, let's talk about what is going to be a problem about what we're discussing, or if you have concerns about it, what is it that you have concerns about? Let's get those on the table. And I feel like that has helped individual relationships one-on-one with folks, as well as our whole team be able to know that it's acceptable to raise, to be the devil's advocate, to raise concerns.
Well, it's interesting how harmony actually is the enemy of high performance.
Right.
And it's the tension that creates the attention. So the bigger the room, the more tension you need. And not everybody can pull that off. But, well, it was lovely to hear from you here. I know we have some questions that have been coming in from the audience. We'll get to those here shortly. And so now let's circle back to your life outside of work. I know you have a passion for the great outdoors and doing some things like that. Will you tell us about one of your favorite backpacking adventures with your family?
Oh gosh, yeah, sure. That could take a whole hour.
Yeah.
We love the Superior Hiking Trail, and we're big supporters of the Boundary Waters Canoe area. And so if you haven't been out to either one of those areas in northern Minnesota, highly recommend it. And you don't have to be an expert to do it. So. Our kids used to call it forced marches because we'd hike through the Superior Hiking Trails.
Forced marches.
Forced marches through the forest. But one of the things that I love the most is just the unexpected adventure of it. And so one day we realized that because we tried to pack differently, we were close to out of food. And instead of making it a 4-day hike, we had to make it a 3-day hike. So we actually had to hike 16 miles. And we each had one granola bar for breakfast, and then we had to split the Snickers bar in the afternoon to hike 15 miles. So our kids have never let us forget that. The good news is we had enough water, so that wasn't a problem. But it's just some of those unexpected experiences that make things the most memorable. And what I also love is there's absolutely no technology in the Superior Hiking Trail. And that's, if you haven't heard of it, the Superior Hiking Trail is in northern Minnesota, and it's 400 miles of beautiful hiking, and you can do day trips. And there's a lot of places that you can park your car and hike for the day, or you can go in and camp overnight. And So that was a memorable experience for us.
I need to get the Minnesota Tourism Bureau to sponsor this. So, Chloe, I know you've been collecting some questions from the audience, and we'll get back to those here in just a couple of seconds. So can we talk about the third survey question that we asked earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. Megan, it's so fun to hear you talk about the Boundary Waters, especially. I brought my last summer I brought my boyfriend from New York to the Boundary Waters, and I was pitching for 4 days, and he said, no, 3 days is enough. Said, okay. Okay, let's get to this third question in our pre-breakfast survey. The question is, our team accomplishments are rewarded more than our individual accomplishments, yes or no? And let's see those results. Okay, so it looks like 83% said yes and 17% said no. So this is the biggest disparity we've seen so far. So what this says to me is that this is one of the hardest skills for a team to master. Is that true, Paul?
Yeah, no question about it. In some organization, this is a really hard transition to overcome, especially when there's lots of physicians involved. I mean, it's about embracing generosity as a way to help people win together and to get better results. We actually believe the best teams don't want to single out particular individuals. They prefer to win together and share the credit. We confirmed that idea with the research for the How Goodness Pays book, and it's something that we work on every single day.
Yeah, it's really important. And I just want to remind everybody watching, this is the last chance you have to chat your questions for Megan. And now it is my time to remind you all about the Bucket of Goodwill, which is my personal favorite good leadership tradition. Our partners at Handy Paint Pail are donating $1,500 to Common Bond, a nonprofit organization committed to affordable housing in the Midwest. And if you would like to add to this donation, you'll see the website and a QR code on your screen. Megan, can you say a few words about why you chose this organization?
Oh, sure. Thank you. I love Common Bond. For 5 decades, Common Bond has been working hard to increase the amount of affordable housing in the upper Midwest. And they're accomplishing their goals in amazing ways. And in addition to housing, they provide services to help students with education, to help keep seniors engaged and activated in their community. And they're just a great organization making a difference.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And thanks in advance to everyone who decides to contribute. That's one of our favorite things to do, is raise money and share the goodness. So, Chloe, before we get to the audience questions, will you share a little bit of the buzz that's been brewing out on social media from today's breakfast?
Yeah, we've got some tweets. We've got John tweeting about, he loved your quote, "I'm a lot more grateful and a lot more patient." And we've got Mike saying, repeating I'm learning through the lens of what's important, not urgent. And Mike says we can all learn from this model.
Good. Let's see. So now, do you have any questions?
I think it's time for questions, right?
Yeah. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, we do. We do have some questions. All right. So let's see. Megan, can you talk a little bit more about your journey in becoming a leader and your leadership philosophy?
Sure. So the journey of my own personal leadership journey is really focused on professional development. I feel like while we all come with a lot of innate skills, leadership has a lot of learnings where you can learn to be a better leader. And so I always feel bad for the group that it was like my first manager position, because I realized I was one of the youngest people in this clinic, and as I look back on it, I really actually had no idea what I was doing. So I think sometimes people think, particularly when you talk to executives, that they always knew. It was just natural. You're just born with this ability. Yeah. And I just continue to tell people that, no, this takes 30 years to figure out. Yeah. And that you increasingly, if you work on yourself, there was a quote I heard early in my career, that you should work on yourself harder than you work on your job. And what is it that you bring to the table, and how are you really inspiring others and facilitating work rather than it being about you as the leader itself.
Yeah, good. Well, it's been fun watching you grow, that's for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, good.
Hey, Paul, I'm hearing that we have a question from an audience member in person, actually. We've got Rachel Uzlik from Twin Cities Orthopedics in the audience. So Rachel, let's get Rachel up to the mic and ready to ask her question to Megan Remark.
Thank you, Megan. As a CEO, when did you first identify that you could be a CEO? And do you have any recommendations for someone who would want to follow in your footsteps?
Oh, that's a great question. Gosh, when I started in my career, I had no belief that I would ever be in this kind of role. I knew I wanted to make an impact. I knew I wanted to be a leader in healthcare. But I think that over time, I realized what contributions I could make. And so I feel like, gosh, what's the best advice I give people? The best advice I really share with people is learn fast on a small stage. I think too many people want to come straight out of a graduate program or an undergraduate program and go right into that VP role or want a director role. And I feel like I really learned so much. I took a couple of laterals into manager positions. So I went from one manager position to another to learn different aspects of healthcare and really learned a lot about leadership and did trial and error and failed fast on a small stage, so that then as I increased my leadership scope, I was able to handle the changes of that increasing responsibility because I had that background. So I would say take your time and don't be in such a hurry.
Yeah, so that's so fascinating, because what we say it this way, that there's no straight line. Mm-hmm. It bounces all over the place, and often it goes this way before it goes back up that way. Mm-hmm. And it's just, and there will always be something, maybe not as dramatic as the pandemic, but there's always something. Mm-hmm. And if you're not prepared for that sort of at your core, then you don't make it through and thrive. Right. So there's one question we've been asking all the speakers that have come through the Good Leadership Breakfast, and that is, goodness pays, but how do you know for sure that goodness pays for you as a leader?
Well, I know goodness pays for sure because it brings out the best in all of us and it gets positive results. And for me as a leader, I am a better leader because I'm leading through the lens of good intent. And by doing that, I think myself and our leadership team is giving all of our colleagues the confidence to try and accomplish things that people thought were not possible. Mm-hmm. And in the pandemic, we saw that every day. We saw direct caregivers rising above and innovating and leading with goodness. And leadership can either be a positive halo impact to that, or people do it despite you. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's an opportunity to really be a part of that positive momentum, and the leaders set the tone.
Thank you so much for being with us today. This is going to be one tough act to follow, I guarantee you that. Yeah, so it's very clear to us why the people at Regents Hospital are proud of their work and feeling successful as people. They're lucky to have you as a leader.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. It's been really illuminating to hear from somebody who was right in the middle of the healthcare industry throughout this whole pandemic. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here today. After all this conversation about positive teamwork, I think it's only fitting that we share the results to the final survey question we asked before the breakfast. So that question was, yes or no, we have an ethical culture that attracts good people to our business. And the results are 92% yes and 8% no. Paul, what do you think?
Well, that's no surprise from this audience. I mean, we all believe in goodness. But I think it's back to my earlier comments. It doesn't mean that we won't be seeing some of our favorite teammates moving around later this year. It's a good idea to stay in close touch with the people that are important to your success, because they're probably thinking about how they want to live and work into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice to people in all levels of their organizations. So we're now, all right, with this, we are coming to the close of our final Good Leadership Breakfast of the Spring series. And it's been a fantastic spring. We heard from Bruce DeWitt and his operational assurance planning at Testec. We heard from Ray Kowalik and how he tackles accountability at employee-owned Burns & McDonnell. And now we have this really wonderful conversation about positive teamwork from the always wonderful Megan Remark of Regents Hospital. Paul, it's hard to believe we're done for the spring.
Yeah, how time flies, right? It's really been fun learning how to create a real broadcast and sharing the success habits of these three fantastic CEOs. And it's appropriate to thank you, Chloe. You've been our partner through all the ups and downs of this. Thanks for being our barista and our co-host.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I wish I could be there in person. I miss all of you. I'm already looking forward to the fall series, and we have a fantastic lineup of speakers. We've got Deshawn Brew, the president of Minnesota Public Radio, Teresa Rasmussen, president and CEO of Thrivent, and Allison Rempel-Brown, president and CEO of the Science Museum of Minnesota. And I really can't wait to listen in on some of those conversations. So for everybody watching, look for emails this summer on how to register for that series.
Well, thank you, Chloe, once again. So before I sign off today, it's important we express gratitude for the good leaders at Old National Bank, at Twin Cities Orthopedics, and Irish Titan, the sponsors for this breakfast today. With your encouragement, we've continued to research the business benefits of Goodness Pays and experiment with innovative coaching systems to help executive teams thrive together. So as I close, I want to ask the question that I asked Megan here a little earlier. So how have you changed as a leader because of the events of the past year? People are always changing and growing. And it should seem obvious, but I really think we've all accelerated our growth because of the intensity of the past 18 months. It's not very different than how a college student changes after being away from home for a year, or an executive who returns home from overseas after an expatriate assignment. They come home feeling very different. We simply can't go back to the way things were before. The best leaders, they choose to grow and change because they love what they're building with their teams. Does that describe you? We're having these growth conversations with all of the clients of Good Leadership. It's one of the many ways that makes the executive coaching field feel so rich and rewarding. And we just love sharing the success habits that we learn from others with you. So let's all make the promise to soak up the joys of the summers and to use that positivity to grow into good leaders who radiate goodness, because the world needs us to spread goodness, because goodness pays. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you all in September.